Good evening, Littleton. November 7th, 2022 Select Board meeting. We are going to begin tonight with executive session and then return at 6:30 into open session. And Mr. Clerk, if you would please read us the motion.
Move the Select Board vote to enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to conduct strategy in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Town Administrator, Police Chief, Deputy Police Chief, Fire Chief, and Deputy Fire Chief. Requires a roll call vote.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Mark. Roll call vote. Mr. Rombacher?
Aye.
Mr. DeCoste?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Napoli?
Aye.
And the chair's in favor. Motion carries 5-0. We will be back at 6:30 with our open session. Thank you.
Well played.
Are we on? Here we go. Good evening. Welcome back. Open session, November 7th. We'll begin as we usually do with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Clerk.
Pledge
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, tonight on our agenda, appointment of full-time police officer, bond acceptance notes, private snowplow applications from the Department of Public Works, changes to the upcoming changes to the town's fire alarm systems, and a presentation from the Cultural Council. Welcome. Public input, followed by discussion on the special town meeting, follow up on filling new positions and a review of the town meeting, a discussion on the Nagog Orchard, and town administrator update on Cricket Lane, a discrimination suit, appointment to the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, town hall hours for the day after Thanksgiving, and minutes. And that will be a quick night. So, Mr. Administrator, mail.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one item I wanted to bring to your attention. The Littleton Holiday Bazaar is going to be on December 3rd from 9 o'clock to 3 p.m., and that's at the middle school gym. And Millie and Nancy are putting this together, and they wanted to share this information with the board to put it on everybody's calendar. It's a great take. I've come back, and my wife buys a lot of stuff that Gary makes fun of me for, but it really is a good take, and it's December 3rd, so we want to get that message out there.
And the best Santa pictures anywhere, basically.
Anywhere.
Just fantastic. Thank you. All right. Appointment of a full-time police officer. Who's going to speak?
You're the deputy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
First off, I just wanted to point out, as Ryan did to me, it is No Shave November, as you may see, looking in the back of the room, little different faces, but they are, once again, collecting money from the union and other ways to give to a local charity, and they're not going to shave for the month of November. And they're trying to push it longer, too, so. We're here tonight asking you to appoint Jim Ferrara. As you may remember, you've already appointed him twice as a reserve. Initially back in April of 2019, he came on. And then last December, we had to end the reserve program when the state changed the laws and the requirements. His other job, Middlesex Sheriff's Department, did offer him the opportunity to go to the Bridge Academy. He completed the Bridge Academy, and upon completion of that, he is now eligible to be a full-time police officer in the state of Massachusetts. We brought him back as a reserve. He's been working out excellent. He's always there when we call for details, for other things, all the community-minded efforts and everything else. So we would ask you appoint him to a full-time position and bring him on full-time for us. Jim?
Good evening. I'm Jim Ferrer. I've been with the Middlesex Sheriff's Department the past almost 6 years now. Worked with Littleton 2 years with a little break in between. I used to live in town. I'm right in the neighborhood. I enjoy the town and the community, and I like to serve the community as best I can.
Thank you.
Well,
Welcome.
thank you.
Any questions from the board?
I think we've already,
Yeah, thank you.
I think we grilled them back in 2019.
Okay, Mr. Clerk?
Fantastic.
Move the select board vote to appoint Mr. James Ferreira as a full-time police officer.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Gary. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Are you going to start growing your beard now?
Got some catching up to do.
Congratulations. Thank you.
You're not ruggedly handsome enough yet. Thank you.
Thank you guys for supporting your brother. Thank you.
All right. Bond acceptance notes.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
Speaking of No Shave November.
Yeah.
Steve knew he was.
I think it was No Shave October.
November what year?
I don't know if he's raising any money for anything.
Here tonight to
It's
talk
on his
about
own.
an $8,804,500 ban that we are issuing November 18th. It sold last week to Jeffries LLC with a net yield to the town of 3.30%. It's a little bit more than the 0% that I brought last meeting to you. Sorry about that. In talking with our financial advisor, the 3.3 is a good rate for this issue. She was expecting more around the 3.5% range from other issues that we were getting. So there was a lot of interest in this. There was 5 or 6 bids for this. So it was very good to see. This is maturing May 17th, so it's a 6-month issue. At that point in time, the water treatment plant should be just about completed, so we'll have final numbers on that. Would either bond this at the end, because this is the ineligible cost for the Mass Clean Water Trust issues. So we'll either bond it or wait and see what the timeline is for the senior center and try and combine those two, line up the maturity. So I'll run over this all with the new treasurer when she comes in, so we'll be on the same page. And it's good. Are there any questions for anyone?
I had one, so we had six. Six,
Bids? There's either 5 or 6 bids.
do we always choose the lowest bid, or is there other criteria?
Always the lowest, always the lowest.
Always
bid.
the lowest, thank you.
Yes. This does have a 4% coupon on it, so we're paying the 4% coupon. It's the premium that we receive that brings it down to 3.3.
Okay.
Some of the bids had higher premiums, but it was a 5% coupon. So we always look at that net interest cost, that 3.3%.
Any other questions? If not, we have a epic motion for Mr. Clerk to read.
Move that select board vote to adopt the form of the vote prescribed by bond counsel, a copy of which is attached hereto and made part hereof, relative to the approval of an $8,804,500 bond anticipation note dated November 18th, 2022, sold to Jeffries LLC and maturing May 17th, 2023, at 3.308156% net interest cost for the following projects: Whitcomb Ave Wells at $2,401,400 with a date of 5/07/18 from annual town meeting, Article 19. Water treatment for PFAS, $1,779,500, which was voted on at the 10/28/19 special town meeting, Article 12. Sewer design for $2.15 million, voted at special town meeting 10/29/18, Article 10. Sewer construction for $2,473,600, voted on 10/17/20 at special town meeting, Article 11.
Second?
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Gary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Have a lot of documents to sign.
That's exciting. Thank you.
These are special check.
Just for the clerk.
What color pen you want me to use?
Start over there. Maybe we'll just keep going in one direction. Thank you. All right. Mr. John Lee.
Thanks, Steve.
Another Steve. Another bearded Steve to the podium, please. Good evening.
Good evening. Stephen Yonley, Director of Public Works. Here with the annual kind of thing for the board for the acceptance of the private street snow and ice procedure. Back early September, we sent out the applications to the contacts from the private streets. They were due back on October 7th. In the memo in your packet was all the ones we received. One had some issues with some potholes, the back end of Green Needles, but they've taken care of all that since. So everything as presented in the memo is good to go, as has been the case for the past few years. So we just look for the board's approval.
Will recuse myself from this since I live on one of the private ways, so is there any comment or questions from the board?
I have a comment. And this, excuse me for my ignorance on some of this. So this is for strictly the plowing and sanding of the roads, not maintenance?
Correct.
Correct, thank you.
Yeah, we're responsible for the maintenance.
And of the ones we sent out, these
Sorry.
are 15 are the ones that we got responses from.
Correct.
If I may, Mr. Chair, there's an item that's coming up later on the agenda that's connected in a way to the topic that's...
Do you want to take that one next, maybe?
we take it?
Yeah, I think
This time
that,
while
yes.
Steve's here.
I was going to suggest that. I think that's a good
Maybe
idea.
perhaps before the vote. we can-
Before the vote right
Yeah.
now? Okay, sure. So prior to the vote then, should we discuss item 7A, the Cricket Lane discrimination suit? And it has, I know that's, it's like involved with the plowing.
Yeah, so I'll tee it up and Steve can explain. So we received a complaint that was filed by a resident against the town at the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination. And this is a resident at Cricket Lane who they believe that they were discriminated against due to 4 different issues that's included in your packet. You know, first one being an African-American and new to the community and so forth, but we reject this claim. You know, we have our attorneys that will certainly handle this. Cricket Lane, Steve's been working on that, Chief Penard's been working on that. That's a road that we have paved and that we have plowed in the past. But there was a new resident down at the end of that road that put a shed in where we normally would push some snow, plus 2 additional parking spots, which makes it difficult for the DPW to actually continue plowing that road and safely turning around with the big plow and then coming back down. Steve has sent the letter, and you can correct me at any point, Steve, to the residents, and all they have to do is have each resident sign it and send it back. They didn't do that. Therefore, they were not included on the list of plowing. So, if there's any questions they have of Steve or of Ryan or I, I'm happy to answer anything.
So the letter you sent to them was the same petition letter that you sent to everyone, or was it different?
So the letter that went to them was right out of the board's policies and procedures, and
Okay.
included the entire policy and then the application form.
Okay.
It went to one of the residents, and then their, I'm assuming, legal counsel, because there's a whole legal issue going on down there that I don't want to put the town in the middle of either. And then never got an application back. After the deadline, we received the document from Land Court indicating what we could do and not do with snow, but never got an application. And again, after the October 7th deadline. So there was no application filed, so I couldn't comment, we couldn't inspect.
I know one resident came to one of our meetings to ask, and I think that was prior, I think that she did come in prior to the deadline, but you never received or
No,
discussed with them?
They were sent all the,
Okay.
no different than, and I actually was in contact with 2 different residents of Cricket Lane. I think there's 15 or 16 homes down there total. Never got,
And each home has to sign off on that request, correct?
correct.
So,
Well, every property owner.
every property owner. So we would assume that they didn't get every property owner, and that's why that application didn't come back to DPW.
And the legal issue you referred to earlier is not this discrimination suit, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
There's a dispute with the neighbors on that
I
street.
believe I remember reading some discovery documents that you forwarded to us earlier this year. Okay. Any other comments on that item?
And just for the board's reference, Cricket was dropped last year. We did not provide services last year.
Was that also because they didn't return the petition?
They returned the petition. The issue was with how they were parking their cars at the end.
Okay,
And that's why it was not recommended.
okay.
And just, the only question I have is, because it's a legal matter here, potentially, do we have a history of accepting applications after the date?
That I don't know.
It has
This is my first
happened,
one.
it has happened since I've lived in town a few times.
All right.
I don't know how often it was, but I know at least once our road was approved after the deadline.
The application came in late.
The application came in late. There were some extenuating circumstances with the person who was handling the petition at that time, but the DPW did agree to plow that year. So. No more comments? I guess we'll vote. Well, not me. You will vote on the approval of the roads.
No action to be taken on 7A, right?
Correct, that was just an
Okay.
update for the board. And
Thank
while
you.
Steve here, if you had any questions, it was a time before we dismiss Steve.
Yeah. Mr. Clerk, look for a motion.
Move the select board vote pursuant to its August 28, 2000 policy on plowing, sanding private ways to approve the list of roads as recommended by the Highway Department, report dated October 31st, 2022, as follows. Approved without further conditions, Barron Way, Countryside Road, Deer Run Road, Great Road, number 504 to 512, plowing only, Green Needles Road from the Neshoba Woodlands section, Green Needles Road, back half, Hidden Wood Path, Oak Ridge Road, Omega Way, Robin Wood Road, Rock Place, Silver Birch Lane, Star Hill, Winged Cove Road, Whispering Pine Drive, and Whitcomb Ave.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous with one abstention.
4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, Mr. Clancy, welcome.
I think it's more like Mr. Fancy.
If you recall, 2 weeks ago, you liked the sport jacket.
I like the tie.
The tie, well, I was paying respects to a colleague's
Very good.
passed away father, so it's a little dressy, but thank you for having me here this evening.
Thank you.
So I wanted to just come before the board and talk about the fire alarm system in town. And last Tuesday evening, I thought it kind of funny when all of a sudden they said, hold on, Article 3, and I leaned over to the deputy police chief and go, well, it's either me talking about the car or you talking about the radio city. And when one of the townspeople who had a question about that article came up and said, hey, you know, the police station's brand new. Shouldn't it have brand new radios? Well, the police station's 12 years old. And consequently, when it opened in '09, we switched from a system in place since '98 to a new radio box type dispatch system. So it sends a signal from the businesses via a radio signal to dispatch, and then, as my memo states, they dispatch us to the call. Well, like any technological advance, it's no longer supported. It's going to a cloud-based system, and we're going to I come before the board so that the chief and I can go out and solicit some quotes. I think I put in my proposal, request for quotation, but I don't think the capital outlay is going to justify that. I think I could go get some proposals, and even the one I included from the current vendor, if they're willing to stick by that, I think we'd have to have town council go through that and see if that's a viable way to do this. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention so it can come back sometime maybe around February and say, okay, here's what we found, here's the best options for the town, and we can move forward. That keeps us from having to spend. I'm not sure about capital outlay. I know there's going to be some type of monitoring fee. It's just figuring that out, what's the best way. And if we can, there's 42 businesses in town that we currently monitor, or 42 municipal boxes that we monitor in addition to the ones I listed for the town. So trying to go to someone and get an idea on what they'd come back and say, here's the best way to do this. That's why I'm here tonight, to have you, to give me permission to go and do that.
All of these locations are municipal buildings or municipal properties?
No, I gave a list of the town properties, but there's 42 additional businesses in town that we monitor. The biggest one being the Point. So all the businesses in the Point utilize us. But any new business coming in, I'm asking them to go with a dialer system. It's a cellular dialer. So many businesses went to that in 2018, when we opened the new fire station and stopped supporting one of our older modules. And now they're faced with the fact that when they went to this dialer system, they were using 3G, and now 3G is not supported and so they're facing, I got to upgrade it again. So, but that's my 42 private businesses we monitor, in addition to the list of the town businesses, with the 3 coming online.
Do those businesses pay anything?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
They pay the town a yearly monitoring fee for that. After we change, the second letters are going out now.
So, and we didn't get a quote. We didn't get a quote in our packet. Did you have an amount of a quote from the current?
No, I'm looking to go out and find
okay.
that. So I'm going by what our current vendor, who said, we're no longer going to support that software. You're going to have to go to a cloud-based system, and we'll do it for this. I want to go out and find some other people so I can have something to come back to you and say, here's our options, kind of like what Mr. Venuti did with the bonds.
So, but how much was that they said?
Well, they're not saying specifically. Right. They're estimating $400 per month, or excuse me, $400 a year in their letter, but they're also putting in other caveats that if this many businesses stay with them, then we'll discount it.
Okay.
Or, and also they'll make the transition to the cloud-based if you stay with them at no cost to the town to upgrade.
Got it.
One of the other companies, a local company I spoke with, said what they do is generally there's a charge for the monitoring and there's a charge for the cellular service. So we have some of our town buildings, like for instance, the high school, you also have a defibrillator for the athletic field. Well, that's monitored, plus the main alarm system. And what she explained was that if you could get both fire alarms on one cellular module, then you only have the one if it won't make it, then you have to put in another transmitter. It's an additional charge, and that's why I said right there we need to make sure we know what we're looking for.
Thank you. Other questions? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Mr.
So, Mr. Chair, Tom and I discussed this last week. I too said if he could get some quotes, then we could put this part of the capital request and figure out what it's going to cost to upgrade the system. And then, of course, anything that we have to pay additionally, we can always pass those fees on to the monitoring, the company. I did that when I was in my last job, so. So there's some work that we can both do on this and have some more answers probably during the budget process.
Did the current vendor give us a sunset? They'll support us through?
Till January 1st, 2024.
But after that, they don't support it, but it won't immediately stop working, is that correct?
It won't stop working, it just.
But they won't fix it if it breaks?
Yeah, but there was another part of that said if you transition to their plan, then they'll continue to work with that as long as you're in the process of transitioning over. Yeah. But the other businesses, the private businesses we monitor now will not have to go on this system. They have the option not to. It's not required by the town that they be monitored by the fire department. And what's really, it changes the whole monitoring system. Whereas if there's a system we monitor now and there's something wrong with the system, I get an email notification that says, there's something wrong, go check it. When you move to this type system, that goes away, as far as I know, unless there's some way the vendor will let us know that, hey, this place it's not functioning correctly. So it's just another, it takes away a burden off the dispatchers in many ways, and but on the same token, you lose a little bit about what's going on in town with your fire alarm system. But it's not something that's specific to Littleton. This is something that's going on. It's technology, so.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
one, so this upgrade is upgrading the system at the fire station or the system
this
on
is-
all the buildings?
It's all, it would have to be all these. In other words, it would take, right now, I think I have a Windows 7 PC that monitors all, no lie, it monitors all the businesses. It's brutal.
Right.
There's one in our station, there's one at dispatch. So this would take that away and go to a cloud-based system where a vendor would be monitoring it. So we would be paying that vendor to monitor our fire alarm system because they own it.
And they would notify the dispatch directly.
Yep. So an alarm comes in, they call dispatch and say, hey, I'm receiving a fire alarm activation, zone 2 at Reuben Hall Library.
Right, but the system on the library or on the schools isn't being upgraded necessarily?
No, it
It's
would,
just the back-end system?
there's a little bit of hardware configuration, so in essence, you're taking out a box with an antenna that transmits a radio signal and changing it out to a cellular.
Phone, basically.
In essence, yes.
Yeah.
And that's the cost. That's the cost to upgrade. You don't take the whole system out here. You just change the way it transmits. So they created the software, they own the software, we own the fire alarm system in town. But once that software becomes obsolete in January, there's nothing we can do, short of hiring someone to put in a new system.
Anyone else?
I guess the question I have is, why is it more efficient if we're outsourcing it? How is that more efficient? Like, are we being forced, in a
Yes.
sense, to do this?
Yeah.
Right?
In other words, you can't use your 3G phone anymore. You gotta get
Okay.
the 5G. It's
Okay.
because that software that tells it to transmit,
Yeah.
they're not supporting it anymore.
Okay.
Because they're losing customers because of how expensive a radio box is versus these new dialers.
Yeah.
So they're just doing a business
Okay.
decision.
I understand.
It's, to that point, I mean,
Yep.
how many people have Ring doorbells? I mean, the technology's, I mean,
Yeah.
it's all being monitored.
It's
by-
12 years old.
Whether it's Keith or ADT or, whoever it is, but
Okay.
I know there are some that are specific to what you're talking about here, but I'm sure the technology has driven the price way down, but because theirs is a niche,
Yeah.
they can charge more for the software and the monitoring and all that kind of stuff.
So,
Go
have you
ahead.
done a mail, is there a mail out going out to all these businesses outside of
Not
this?
till, no, I wanted to speak to the board first before it got out there, and then
Yeah.
I have to, the last time we did a mailer, we had people that didn't need to convert their systems convert to something else because they misunderstood it.
Yeah.
Not to mention, next January or December 31st, there'll still be people that haven't changed over, and come January, they won't have a system. And so it's a lot of legwork on our part because they just won't, you don't know if you're reaching, it's kind of like Steve's letter to the plow customer. You don't know if you're reaching the right person. Did they
Yeah.
move? Is there someone else in charge? But that's what we have, that's why I would say I want to get an idea of how we're going to move forward so that I can tell these businesses that you're going to have to go this route to monitor your fire alarm.
Okay. Do we need a motion, or are we just approving Mr. Clancy to go talk to vendors?
You don't need a motion.
Okay. Go forth.
I'm dressed for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Cultural Council, welcome.
Good evening. I'm the messenger. I represent the Cultural Council, and an eagle-eyed person on the Cultural Council spotted an opportunity to get a grant for the town. And it turns out when you send an email to the select board that says, would you like $15,000, people read it. And Mr. Ansaldi's been following through as well. It's an opportunity for town employees to be trained in judging art and in getting art grants and so forth. It's a opportunity, the training happens in the spring, and they're asking potentially, it's MAPC plus, there's several different agencies here, New England Foundation for the Arts and Forecast Public Art. So what they're doing is they're giving, they're going to give, after towns complete these training sessions, they will be given a grant of $15,000 to put them into use. I saw it because, someone on the, excuse me, Cultural Council saw it, and I thought of a project that we're thinking of with, that would tick all the boxes. It's, while this is not for a specific project, the training is not for a specific project, it is just nice to have something in the back of your mind saying, well, you know, this is not pie in the sky. And that project involves collaboration among many different town boards and town organizations, the Historical Society, the schools, and so forth. So it really, and it also involves Native American heritage of Littleton. So it really, it ticks all the boards. So the grant was due last week, so we couldn't come and tell you about this ahead of time, although you got the paperwork. So I just wanted to come and just let you know that Jonathan Allen from the high school and Mr. Ansaldi have done the application. It has been received. We know it's been received. They'll probably fund about half of the communities that apply, which would be, I don't know how many are applying, but they expect to apply to have about 10. So it's a really, it's a good opportunity for the town to, the Cultural Council, well, we can't do this because we're volunteers and it has to be town employees, which of course shows that the town is committed to it. But we're very interested in more public art, and this fits right in with what we've been thinking. And so we just wanted to let you know. I printed out all the information, and I guess it's Mr. Ryan is getting this, so I'm lucky. And there it is, and, oh, Mr. Ferrero, sorry. So that's what we're doing. If there are any questions, we won't know until probably the end of the year if we've received it or not.
Thank you. Comments, questions?
No, this is great. Thank you very much for bringing this forward.
Yeah, thanks for chasing it
Appreciate
down.
Thank you. Also, this is sort of informal, but the Cultural Council will officially be coming to the Select Board because we've been talking for a long time about decorating things like the electric boxes and so forth. And we've talked to the electrical folks, and they've given us pushback. They're not interested. So other towns like Wellesley that have public light departments have had theirs painted. And so it was suggested that we have a word with the Select Board and see if you folks might not be able to move things along. So,
One thing, if I may.
and I know that you are the one specifically.
So, yeah.
Rabble
this is-
rousing.
Yeah, rabble rousing. I don't believe that the Light and Water Department has control over the switching boxes for all the traffic lights, and I think that's a good place for us to start.
Those are the ones at the Common?
Well, yeah, any one of the common, the high school.
Anything on a state route probably is not in our domain.
No, I think we could.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, just because I've seen them in other communities
Oh, okay.
on Route 30 and so forth.
Ask for forgiveness.
I think if we started with those and it became a buzz, I
Yeah.
think that the Light and Water Department might say, that's a good idea.
The most recently, sort of, one of our newer members is Stephanie Georgopoulos, who lives over by the Shaker Lane School, and she's the member who's running with this. We've set it up so that now each of our projects has someone championing it, rather than just saying, oh, we'll do it, and then place it.
Thank you.
So,
Great.
anyway, that's what we're doing. And our grant cycle, we have our applicants for next year. We'll be evaluating them later this month. We do have significantly less money to grant this year than we had last year. Last year we had 16,000, this year we have 11,000. That was partly because some things had not gone through and because of COVID and we had some extra money. So, but we've got some good applicants and we're gonna rock this town.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the update.
Great job messaging.
Pardon?
Great messenger.
Thanks, Gene.
Uh-oh. Oh, that's good. There's a Castus update in the packet, but not on the agenda. Are we going to do that one?
I think we're going to push that to the next.
Yeah, we're gonna push that.
Okay, great. All right, so public input? Anybody for public input? Going once, going twice? Nope. Member updates? We'll start with Ms. Napoli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just wanted to let the board know that I did tour the Durkee Farmhouse with Bartlett Harvey last week and Mr. Guthrie. Very cool structure. I was very surprised at the structural integrity of the house itself. It was interesting to be in a house that old. None of the floors creaked, none of the stairs creaked. It was really kind of weird. And so we did meet with Mr. Guthrie. We're going to go back to the Affordable Housing Trust now and have a discussion with that group about bringing forward an RFP for affordable housing purposes on that property. It would entail the house itself has a 3-bedroom septic on it. There's also a barn that is adjacent to the house that would require a separate septic system, but there is room on the property to install that. So we're looking forward to discussing that further with the Affordable Housing Trust once we get the property deeded over to us. Mr. Guthrie was very kind, and he said that if we wanted to move forward with that while the property was still in his name, he had no problem with that. So we're going to be having further discussions about that. I'm excited about that project. And the only other thing I wanted to do is remind the public about the World War I Memorial Rededication Ceremony this Veterans Day at 11 o'clock a.m. on the corner of King Street and Shattuck Street. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully people will come out and support that ceremony. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to give my sympathies to Bill Harold, our communications officer, whose father passed away. I know we got that a little bit, it came late, but I did attend the wake over in Acton, and it was very well received as always. The Littleton police were there in force, so just our sympathies to him and his family. I attended the Workers' Credit Union ribbon cutting, finally, last week. Mark and Matthew were, oh no,
I
you
was
were
not there.
Chuck was there, though. That went well. It was great. Pretty good crowd. It was probably the most cars I've seen in that parking lot since ever. But it was a very good event, and Senator Eldridge and Representative Arciero were both there as well. I wanted to thank the Rotary Club. I attended the Rotary Luncheon last week as well, and Anthony gave a pretty good update, a town update that they requested someone to present to the club. So that was well received. Some couple good questions, and they look forward to having us attend more often. So it's good. Last thing I had on here, outside of the World War I on Veterans Day, that ceremony is just get out and vote tomorrow. So that's it.
Mr. DeCoste.
Yes. So I want to reiterate, just because Nancy Morrison will yell at me if I don't, the bazaar on the 3rd of December at the middle school. The next day, on the 4th, is the tree lighting, the Common, at 4 o'clock. I think it's at 4 o'clock, so the tree lighting on the Common. And as Gary mentioned, we some of us did attend the Rotary Luncheon the day after town meeting for an update on all things town meeting and all things just kind of what's going on in the town. Thank you to everybody that came out to town meeting. It was a nice,
Quick.
expeditious.
Yes.
Yeah, it went quickly, and it was a lot of good input, good debate. Just to double down on the Rotary comments a little bit, the Rotary raised about $30,000 in the Appleman triathlon,
Wow.
and Cheryl Colley's working us over a little bit that maybe we could collectively get a membership for the select board or the town administrator select board, so that one of us on any given week could attend, just to stay plugged in with Rotary. So it's something we could consider. I think it'd be worthwhile. Their drive and their mission is to basically give away money. So they raise the money, they give it away, and they do a lot within our community, and they've helped out a lot of different organizations. To add to that, on Thanksgiving morning, they do have their breakfast. They invite all the football players in and the cheerleaders to come in before they head off to this year over to Ayers Shirley away game. But that breakfast is one of their fundraisers. So just wanted to mention that as well.
Mr. Rohrabacher.
So I attended a lot of the events that everyone else was at. And there's also the check presentation for the $100,000 for the sidewalks from Representative Osiro and Senator Eldridge, and thank you for that. I also, well, Anthony attended it today or knows more about it, but the senior center project is moving along, and they're getting ready to pick the CM at risk. Along those lines, we talked, well, the board talked before I was on about doing something for just a traffic study or plan for Shattuck Street. So I think we need to start moving that along so that if we're changing the traffic flow, it's done well before construction starts. So people are used to it, so.
Just following up on the Rotary, every Eagle Scout project that we had in Troop 20, the first thing they would do is go to the Rotary and ask for funds. And more often than not, the Rotary came through. They're great. I attended the library first one-year anniversary, rousing concert from Kelly's Music and More, featuring my son Peter Nordhaus on drums, playing very loud, very fast, and very well. And I will also say that the Santa at the Holiday Bazaar is, I said it before, the best Santa ever. Real beard, completely into it, is magical at getting young children to take pictures. What? You're not the best Santa? No, I'm telling you, he's great.
It's the only Santa, I'm just saying. He just happened to be here. He's coming that day,
Yeah.
Littleton
That's right.
specifically.
And the
Fair
next day on the
enough.
fire truck.
All right. Town meeting follow-up, Mr. Ansaldi.
Good catch, guys. So we have an agenda item after every town meeting. First of all, for some follow-up, and then just to have a discussion. So that's what the two items are. The first thing that we're moving forward is on the facilities manager position. That was a job description that the board had previously approved, and it's been graded, so that is going to be out in the streets.
Already is.
It already is, that's,
Great.
was quick. And then we're working on the assistant town planner job description. That has to go to the Personnel Advisory Committee for grading and so forth. So we're starting that prep work now, because we have the authorization to hire for April 1st, and if we can really get that out the door in January, we have a good shot at getting somebody on for April 1st, because it does take 60 days or so to bring somebody aboard. So we're trying to jump on that right away so we can move that forward. And again, the second part of this is just, you know, we always just kind of debrief about how town meeting went. Any issues that anybody saw or heard or?
I wanted to talk about the motion that the FinCom made on the, to change
Yeah, that's what I was-
the assistant town planner, just to make sure that we understand, you know, if the reason that they did that was because they felt that they weren't in the loop or they had not approved it, we should figure out a way to make sure that everyone is on board before we go to town meeting. And I'm not sure where, if there was a communication gap, I don't know that there was, like where that happened and what happened there. So I don't know if anyone else knows either, but.
Yeah, I spoke with a few of the members after, and it was exactly that. It's just one of those things that if they felt they weren't able to make a good opinion on it, a voting opinion or recommendation that quickly, they would rather have had a presentation and analysis. Kind of reaching back to Alicia and everybody else, myself included, I usually ask, you see me say it a lot, has this been presented to FinCom yet?
Yeah.
That particular one, somehow it wasn't. They were actually here that night that we discussed it, but they left because we had moved on from the subject they were here for, and that came up afterwards. So I think a lot of us, including the finance team, thought that they were here. So that's kind of what happened and why that particular one. But I think going forward, a lot of these financial articles, I know last year, during COVID, it was easy to, you okay? You have silicos? It was easy to have joint meetings because we were so much Zoom. And we had FinCom and Select Board, so a lot of this really wasn't an issue. But now that we're kind of going back, we just have to make sure that a lot of these things are going to the Finance Committee first. They're aware so that we're not surprising them. That was one thing that a few of the members just as we kick off this budget season, getting deep into it, that if we need them jointly, if it makes more sense, let's get them on. If it's something that they really need to debate over, let's have two presentations. I know it's kind of tough on the staff to have to present things twice, but we've had to do it in the past, so. But that's kind of that in a nutshell. But just going forward, I think just keeping them informed. And not only that, I kind of appreciate, as well as I know the rest of the board does, what their recommendation is and what their concerns are before we have to debate on it. So I think that's an important piece.
Any other comments?
I talked to some of the FinCom representatives, and they basically felt out of the loop on what was going on, so we just need to make sure that everyone's included better going forward. So.
Did you have anything you wanted to highlight?
I think you touched upon it. I think that the meeting that we talked about it jointly, we left that meeting with one opinion of how things were going to go, and then at the next meeting, the item came back up, and the select board at that point added back that position, and it was a miscommunication, and not keeping FinCom updated with that too.
Or perhaps it was our, we pushed to change that at the last minute, and if we had, resolved that sooner and settled it, it wouldn't have had the same problem. So I'm not going to put it all on them.
It's certainly a learning lesson for all of us, right? Moving forward.
Yeah.
Oh, I know it was. It's just more of a concern, something that maybe that we can work on is, I know a few residents, that when it comes to citizen petitions, we had that issue, and it's happened more than once now. I mean, I've been, when I was on FinCom and actually attending other meetings, a lot of times it's the citizens petition is not ready for town meeting. So I think with Ms. Portgorny that spoke among a few others, that what can we do? Is there any way we can help? And I know it's a fine line legally and things like that, but maybe something, a click on our website and opens up a template. I don't know if that exists even, but.
We have something on the website.
Yeah, just, so something's missing, and I don't know how we can promote citizens petitions.
I think the problem is, especially with a zoning bylaw, it's
very
super
complicated.
complicated
It is.
and technical.
If I may, one of the issues on citizen petitions is our office doesn't get to find out about it until the day that it's due. And they may have
Yeah.
talked to the town clerk, and certainly if people just reach out to our office, I'm more than happy to explain to them, we're obviously not going to do it for them, but explain to them the way to go about doing a citizen petition. We could meet with Diane Quarry, so I think the more that people try to contact me, I'm happy to help them through it and make sure that they understand the timelines and the process to go through.
And maybe one of his presentations that you do on LCTV, you say it. Did you know? If you need.
That's a great point
Yeah.
too, Gary,
It's
yeah.
usually too late at that point, because
Yeah.
we're presenting
Yeah.
the articles that are on there.
What happens is people go to the website, they click on it, they download the form, they put together their petition, the language in their petition, they circulate it, they get their signatures, and then they bring it back to us.
Yeah, and that's the first that Diane hears about it.
Right.
Or any of us hear about it.
Yeah, exactly, and that's just kind of, it's complicated depending what the petition's going to entail. Certainly a zoning
Yeah.
change requires a lot more expertise in legal
Has to form,
guidance.
yeah.
And, we as a town can't provide that legal guidance, so it's just kind of, it's a difficult balance.
The plastic bags was something that was
Came-
twice,
yep.
right?
Right,
The kids
yeah.
failed the first time, and they got educated on how things work, and they came back and did a great job.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, we have had a number of citizen petitions that have come sooner and asked the questions where we have assisted them and helped them and given them some guidance and
Right.
the ability
Right.
to check with town council
Yeah.
as to form.
It's almost like the best thing to do would be to come to us and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing the citizens
Yeah.
petition. Where do I go for information?
Right.
And I actually wish the town had voted on that, because I think that would have told us and also the petitioner whether
The flavor.
they wanted to go back and actually make it an official, like, follow-through with a real bylaw. If it was clear that the town was extremely interested in limiting the number of marijuana cultivation facilities, that would have been a great way to judge the temperature of the residents, but,
Yeah, the moderator gave the
Yeah.
options.
yeah, so, anyway.
Right.
Okay, should we move on?
I had a couple questions real quick on the job descriptions. The assistant town planner, is the planning board looking over that before we finalize it and grade it?
I don't know the answer to that, but I would think the answer is going to be no, because it's not the
It's-
planning board's responsibility to do that.
Okay, and on the facilities manager, we didn't put anything in really or there was very little in regarding any aspect of the sustainability portion of the job we were talking about earlier. Were we planning on doing that separately, or how were we attacking sustainability work?
It wasn't included per se in the job description that we sent out, but we can attack that as part of the hiring process.
Okay, thank you.
Is that because it was approved 4 years ago, or
Yeah.
it was
pretty
when
much.
Chase was on the board, so it was at least 4
Right.
years ago, right?
It was a while ago.
I
yeah.
thought there was discussion making that a little part of the assistant town planner had a piece, a sustainability piece added to their,
I think that
was discussed.
the building commissioner mentioned that, but I don't believe that that ever came to pass
Okay.
as part of the.
Yeah.
that's one way to have it,
Yeah.
at least,
Is there still an MOU between the planning board, the town planner, and the town administrator's office?
There is. There is. I believe that is one that didn't have an expiration date. I can double check that, but yes, there is.
And what does that MOU cover?
Supervision.
Day to day,
Day to
Okay.
day, yeah.
Okay.
yeah, because there was one with Myron, with Alicia,
Park and Rec, right. Cemetery.
right?
anyone that's appointed by
By,
commissions.
yes. Trying to-
Well, she wasn't appointed by a commission.
Hmm?
Myron wasn't appointed by a commission. It was
You're
just-
talking about, yeah, Maren is the town, yeah, she's not appointed.
Right.
Can we talk about that for a minute? Do you think it's awkward to have a town employee supervised by an elected board in that regard, with regard, as far
Oh, it's
as,
for the planning board?
yeah,
I think that's why we did the MOU on the
Right.
Keith. Because there was constant changeover, there was no continuity from Myron,
but now that we're kind of creating this whole,
org chart.
yeah.
But I don't think it's any different than some of, like, the library director is overseen by the board. The health coordinator would have been overseen by the Board of Health.
But
Right.
practically speaking, day to day, the
They were-
board isn't.
There was still the MOU that they reported back, but the Board of Health would have the overarching authority, right? And Anthony's office would have the day-to-day management. So I don't think it's that, I think it's the same for a lot of the boards.
I didn't know if it was something we wanted to revisit or not.
Can we, or is it the planning board that would have to revisit that?
I think it
Yeah, I
depends
don't-
on the position.
I don't know.
Well,
Some
there's an MOU,
Yeah, well, some of it's your form of government too, so
Yeah.
there's ways to just do bylaws and memorialize those without needing to do all these MOUs and so forth, so.
I mean,
Yeah.
can you do a little bit of
Research on that?
Is that-
Sure.
Just try to get some
I-
answers to that, some of those questions?
right, yeah.
I mean, are you interested in just making it consistent, or just or
I just didn't even know if it still
I
existed.
just don't know
Okay.
if this point, since the town's, back when that was implemented, the town was a lot different, it was a lot smaller. Now that we're over 10,000 people and we're creating like this whole land use department, is it something we should revisit, maybe suggest with the
You wanna-
planning
You want
board?
to jump on a call? We'll do town council? You want to work on it?
Yeah,
All right, so I'll set something up when I get back
okay,
next week, all right?
all right, great.
great? Thanks.
It's on
Nagog,
you.
are we ready to go?
Sorry,
Nagog?
can I volunteer you?
Yeah, that's all right, I opened my mouth.
Well, it kind of goes with the policies, though.
Actually,
Yeah,
Chuck
that's true.
opened his mouth, and you
And
got
then I
volunteered.
knew
How
when to
did-
stop opening it.
how did that happen?
Jumped in.
For once, you knew when to stop,
All right, Nagog Hill Orchard,
yes.
Ms. Napoli?
Thank you. So I just wanted to give the board an update. We're continuing our lease negotiations with Mr. Egger of Storm Along Cider. So I put together a little PowerPoint presentation with the assistance of Brian. So this is just basically an overview. This is from the RFP about the orchard. what we were looking for as a board with respect to the orchard itself, which I can't read, hold on. Just basically, to honor the intent of the land and have the property used in economically viable and sustainable agricultural purposes, to use the property for community programs and education, and to ensure the property is managed responsibly and held to the standards expected by town officials and the residents of Littleton. So that's something we're kind of keeping in mind as we go through this negotiation process. In the next slide, we got back some more specific information from Mr. Edgar about what fields he intends to use and how he intends to use them. So if you want to go back to that map. So what I did was, which it looks a little off.
Top a little bit.
But that's fine. This is me in PowerPoint using my new laptop. So the A stands for Apple. So basically, those are all the fields that he intends to either maintain or increase apple production. He's also planning on using adding some other fruit trees to those orchards. As you can see, that's in fields 1 and 3 at the top of the screen. He's also planning on planting new trees in fields 1 and 3 specifically. Fields 4 and 5 historically are in the best condition. Those are the fields that we did have pruned last year. He's planning on, continuing to use those fields for predominantly apple production. Field 6 is the field that we really is going to require some further discussion amongst the board. Field 6 was the one that was determined when I met with John Clement from UMass that it's really not in great condition. He actually has suggested that that field just be clear cut. Mr. Egger is also proposing wants the board to consider allowing him to create a production facility, and that facility would be located on Field 6. He also wants to convert the main barn into a tap room. So he has, specific plans about how he could go about doing that and specific cost estimates for that. But the production facility is something that we need to discuss as a board to see if it's something that we would consider allowing him to do, and then proceed from there with those discussions with him. And then Field 9, he wants to grow predominantly apples and stone fruit and increase the yield on that field. He wants to add a greenhouse. This is the field that UMass had opined was not really in great shape. We as a board had decided that the rows running horizontal, perpendicular to Nagog Hill Road, we wanted to have pruned. This is also the field that has that row of trees that have the fire blight that need to be removed. And so he is planning on restoring that field and utilizing it for apples and stone fruit, which would be great. Field 10, he wants to grow predominantly apples and stone fruit. Field 11 and 12, down towards the bottom there, he wants to actually use those for vegetable production and add some greenhouses to those fields as well. Field 14, he wants to grow grapes and berries. And then he makes no mentions to fields 7, 7, and 13. So if we can go to the next slide. One of the things he talked about that we need to get more information from him, the working group is having a meeting Wednesday night where we're going to go through specific details of his proposal and present back to him some questions just with respect to pesticide management and management of the orchard. In general, he talks about, having a licensed orchard manager. Well, what is a licensed orchard manager is one of the things that we're going to try to narrow down. He talks about monitoring pest issues and growing practices. Well, what would that entail? How would he monitor pest issues and growing practices? So those are just some of the questions we're going to talk about Wednesday night with the working group. He talks about using consultants and having an orchard manager and just things like that. So we're just going to try to get more information about those things. He talks about a pesticide loading and storage area. So I'm not sure, if he would use the existing area that's at the barn. where pesticides have been previously stored, or is he's looking for another location. Deer fencing is something that he mentioned. That's going to require further discussion amongst the board and the Conservation Commission. We're going to need to get their input before placement of that fencing is decided upon. For the residential house, he is planning on using the first floor and maybe the basement area as a retail store and a tasting room space. He wants to do a cider garden off the back of the house and also use some of the basement area for that as well. He wants to operate that May through November at limited times with a focus on weekends. He wants to use the upper level of the house for office space. He's proposing that the main barn will be a tap room. He wants to convert it into a year-round operation, maybe expand the footprint of the main barn, add a kitchen and facilities so that it could be for year-round use. And then we talked about the production facility already on Field 6, the lower barn, the white barn, when you go around the bend. He's proposing to store his equipment there. He just is going to have the structural integrity of that space examined. And then the cottage that's in the lower part of the orchard, we need to discuss as a board, because it's, that little cute little cottage is just kind of sitting there, and we actually have some photos of it to share with you, but we just need to figure out what we want to do with that, because that's not in part of his plan at all.
Would would he need that for his seasonal workers,
I know,
maybe?
that surprises me. He
It's not habitable.
It's not up to code. Yeah, it doesn't have
Oh,
water,
it-
doesn't have septic, doesn't have heat, doesn't have anything.
Right, I don't even know if it might have water, I'm not sure. Actually,
Water shut off.
Ryan,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It appears to have water, but
right,
yeah, it's a dodgy proposition.
Okay,
right.
okay.
So 2 questions for the board tonight is, would you consider allowing a production facility on Field 6? So we just would like to have that answer, so we know how to proceed with discussions with regard to lease negotiations. And also, what was the other thing? Oh, and the other thing that we need to discuss is the term of the lease. So one of the things that town council has brought up to us is that, I believe the way it was voted at town meeting, it might have been voted as a 10-year lease that we have continually extended. That 10-year span is not enough longevity for this type of operation, because Mr. Egger is proposing to put in a lot of money into the Nagog Hill Orchard, not only the property itself, the orchard itself, but also the buildings. To permit him enough time to get a return on his investment, we would need to consider extending the lease itself to possibly as long as a 30-year lease. And that is to say, that would not be sign on the dotted line, we'll see you in 30 years.
Yeah.
Because we're going to put some safeguards, clearly in the language of the lease itself, to have, shorter-term checks and balances with him. But that's just something else for the board to consider. I anticipate, and that would require a town meeting vote if we do want to extend it for 30 years. One of the things I was going to mention to the board is I anticipate possibly that this planning board might be asking to hold a special town meeting to address the gun licensing. That wouldn't surprise me. And maybe at the same time, if we wanted to put an article on the warrant at that time as well, just to extend the Nagog Hill Orchard lease for 30 years, just so that we could address that now as opposed to waiting to May.
All right, comments on those 2 questions, I guess?
I have a few.
On the production facility and the lease.
Yeah, so there's a couple things with the production facility. I mean, obviously, if we are seriously considering this business, that we want them to succeed, and if this is part of that success, I guess my question would be that it somehow incorporates the New England charm, or whatever that has to look like, to so it doesn't look like a typical.
I mean,
You hear the word production
He
facility.
mentions that specifically.
Yeah, so-
that he would make it
Whatever.
aesthetically
And then
appropriate.
the height, obviously, things like that, and what it actually entails. So I think that's my greatest concern. I think that field's a perfect field for that, because it really can't be used for
Right,
for
it's
much
not in
else.
great shape, right?
And And I guess the 30-year fix kind of solves one problem. We don't have to sit here and think, well, what happens if they vacate? What are we going to do with this facility? But that creates more options probably for, I don't know, later on if this company left. But 30 years, it sounds like they're going to commit. So when we talk about a lease that size, more importantly than ever, I think we have to mandate responsibility to an individual position in the town, as opposed to the board, because this board's going to change how many times in 30 years. So I really think having an individual be able to come to us and give us an update, whether that is yearly, however we decide, every 3 years, 5-year check-ins, whatever that looks like, on all things Orchard. Are they living up to the commitment to have Orchard days where people can actually pick? Are they living up to keeping the facility up? Just whatever the lease says, whatever we've identified. I would also say if a 30-year lease, even though I would agree to a 30-year lease for a business like this, it would be every 10 years we revisit the lease because things change. Technology, climate, so many things can change that we revisit maybe with, maybe one of the buildings wasn't in the original lease and we see something that we forgot or wasn't, that we should be able to reopen the lease just to add, hey, this building needs to be updated. We're talking about that cottage. I don't know, maybe 10 years from now, that becomes a cool spot for Boy Scouts to camp, overnight or something. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there, but just things like that you'd want to add into the lease. So that's really, I'm excited about this is.
It is exciting. It's a great opportunity. So one of the things just to mention, with regard to checks and balances and what I have talked to town council about, I'm going to propose to the board is that when we do our annual license renewals for our liquor licenses and things like that the Orchard be part of that cycle, and that the lessee be invited to appear before the select board. I think in the past we've had various select board members champion the Orchard and they go visit the Orchard and they come back and they say everything's great. I think we really need to make it so that person appears before us, just like all our other license holders do.
Okay.
I think that would be one benefit, something that we could instill with this new lease negotiation. The other thing that I should mention to the board is we're probably looking at 3 separate leases. We're looking at one for the Orchard itself, or looking at one for the house, and if the board is going to consider the production facility and allowing the creation of the tap room, that whole Field 6 piece might get broken out, and we might enter into a totally separate lease for that whole area in itself. It might be the easiest way to manage all of this, because if you consider the tap room and the production facility, those are really income generators for the lessee that should be subject to different terms, I believe, if the board agrees. We've already pretty much discussed that overall the Orchard management, the Orchard piece of it, we're not really looking to make money off the land itself. We just want somebody that's going to come in there and be a good steward of the land, correct? And we know that we need to, we do need to charge a certain amount of taxes for the land itself based on our discussions with town council and the assessor. And then the house itself, that's something else that we're going to have to talk about. The lessee's going to have to put a lot of money into that house to get it up to par if he wants to use it for retail space, for a tasting room, and for offices upstairs. So he's going to be putting forth his own money to renovate that house, and we need to look at what are those renovations going to look like, because, like, for example, there's a kitchen in the house, right? Is he going to remove the kitchen? What is he going to do with the kitchen? And how are those discussions going to be back and forth between him when he's, making plans to do renovations to the house? So we need to have, outline all of that too.
I mean, that's just a small capital investment compared to the production facility. I mean, it's huge.
Do you have,
I've got something.
either of you?
I don't have a problem with the production facility at the high level I mean, I think the devil's in the details a lot more on that. I'm not I think it's kind of the right location, but feeding out onto Nagog Road, there might be a bit of a problem for trucks and anything else that are coming in. I'd be concerned about traffic management with that. If he's turning the barn into a tap room, that's not where he's going to store his pesticides, so
Right.
they're going to go somewhere
Good
else.
point, yeah.
So, yeah, and I don't have a problem extending it to 30 years, but I agree he should be coming before our board. But I also think the Ag Commission and the Conservation Commission should be weighing in on a regular basis as well. So we kind of need to figure out how we want it managed longer term, whether it's, obviously the select board has the final say, but I don't know if we want to do as much of the micromanagement going forward, or leave it to one of these other boards to, like, specifically agricultural, right? To do more of the yes and no, and I'll say more of the monthly management, and we're like signing that we agree with what they're doing, rather than being as intimately involved going forward. That's my.
Okay.
Chuck?
Yeah, so I echo a lot of what you guys have said already, but the production facility on Field 6, just like you said, the devil's in the details, so the size. Has he shown you any kind of renderings or what he's kind of thinking? Is it a
DCU
Madison?
building, the DCU building.
Yeah, so I'm going to
It is.
defer.
I think it said
Do you have-
20,000
Metal building.
20,000 square
Yeah.
feet.
Ryan actually has some
So what they,
information.
what they, pardon me. Sorry. Thanks a lot. What they're talking about is a 20,000 square foot facility, so we work with the assessor to say what would be a similarly sized building, and we talked about the DCU building on Great Road to give some sort of perspective on that. Now, that's 2 floors, so, you know, it would be a fairly decent sized facility for that. My guess is they would probably be setting it back a bit off the road and addressing some of the traffic issues. So devil's in the details, but one of the things we looked at was some examples of production facilities in other areas. We looked at what Angry Orchard was doing in New York State. It's a beautiful facility that they put together. I mean, clearly, you know, you can pay close attention to the aesthetics, the country setting that is the orchard, and I think that the group is committed to doing something along those lines, and we'd insist on it.
These are vans, not 18-wheeler trucks.
Well, we don't know.
Backing up there. That would be the question, though. I'm assuming, when I hear this, I'm glad you brought it up, because that's
I mean, Carlson has pretty big trucks going in and out of there all
They
the
do.
time, so.
They're box size trucks, and how, so you need to know how many you're expecting a day. We ask the same thing of Amazon, we ask the same thing of.
Yep.
Sure.
And that's even a more sensitive area where that's located, so I think that warrants some questions.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you see some of the trucks, if you pull down Barnum Road on Devon's, right behind Wendy's, Sullivan's right there, there's, like you said, there's pretty large truck traffic there. Yeah, so just the aesthetic of it and everything, so that's all, like you said, the devil's in the details. 30 lease I have no problem with, and I think if it shows good faith on both sides, as long as, Cindy, you touched on some of these things, business review, presentation to the select board or some other body, some commission that's put in place to oversee this. But I think that business review is important, not just for us, but also for the residents who, frankly, we've kind of dropped the ball a little bit on the stewardship of the orchard. Tracking, in that business review, I wanted to make sure that we had some sort of a tracking of the harvest, because we really, when he came in, we weren't able
Right.
to say, this is what we produced over the last 20 years, in the last 3 years, it's dropped down to this, or something like that, just so, kind of some specifics. And with the 30-year lease, I think that if there are kickers or something like that where we have some sort of benchmark, and I kind of liken it to the TIF that we just discussed last week, right? There were some things that they had to achieve in order to get to certain points. I'm not saying that we're proposing a TIF here, I'm just saying that there needs to be some measurable that they have to get to, or at least be able to explain to us why they didn't get to it, and whether or not we need to help them to get to it, that kind of thing. Parking certainly is something that comes up. As far as deer fencing, that's like the one thing that after any of these meetings, I've gotten some phone calls on from residents with concerns about the deer fencing. So I think that as long as, if it does go in front of CONSCOM or whichever board, that there's obviously the public has the opportunity to be in that room and say their piece. With the house being used for retail, just a matter of zoning, and we do some sort of special permit or grant some sort of variance or something in order for them to be able to use that as a business location because it's zoned residential, I believe. Those are just my areas of concern, just things that, kind of jotted down as you were going through the presentation. Appreciate everything they've done and everything that the group has done, and Ryan and town council and this.
Chuck, could I just follow up on one thing you said too? One of the things that we're realizing based on the condition of the trees, and as Cindy had pointed out, they're talking about some new plantings of grapes and stone fruit. So it's going to, we talk about investment of time in the least. They're going to have to put that, I mean, there's going to be multiple years before they're going to actually see
No yield,
a fruitful
right.
crop from this. So, I think having some sort of benchmarks is fine, but the investment that they're going to have to be making in the first few years into this entire property will be
It's
substantial,
considerable. Yeah.
Yeah,
both in the orchard and the building.
understood. Just,
Right.
I want to be able, for us to be able to answer those questions when they're asked of us.
Right. Ryan, do you have those
I do.
slides? There was just some slides that Ryan actually went and visited the orchard. He
I-
took some pictures.
I want to add one thing about, as far as the select board overview, this kind of slipped away from the select board over the years in the past. So, and I think if we have something in place regarding a mandatory, and that, it's a unique thing having an orchard, right? There's very few municipalities that have anything like this. That we have a mandatory select board walkthrough of that entire facility
Annually.
yearly. Yes, an annual walkthrough, if it has to be made part of a bylaw, whatever it is, because it is unique, that we do it. And that holds all boards accountable, and they can ask the questions. What's that, why does this look like that? What, tell us what you're doing. I think that would help alleviate a lot of things.
And maybe it's also CONSCOM and the planning board. It can,
Sure.
like, all of us are.
Yeah, hey,
are
this is
there.
this is the mob. We're all
Yeah.
meeting.
Right.
We're meeting there, and we're going to walk through the land.
And then we go to the tap room afterwards.
There you go.
The other thing, Gary,
Saying.
that you have going for you in this case is economics.
Yeah.
So for Stormwater to be successful in this site, they have to make the type of investment both in the orchard and in the facilities that they're bringing forward, that people will come back year after year, that people in the community will come to year after year, that people in the community won't complain to the select board about
Right.
year after year. The operation that you had prior to this with the prior tenant,
Yeah.
significantly different,
Yeah.
significantly different. So I think that the financial incentives that you have here, while certainly not a panacea to everything you're trying to do, certainly I think is much more in your favor
Yeah.
in terms of holding the owner, the leasee.
Yeah, they've got some
Yeah.
investment in it. I mean, that's
Huge
the
factor.
huge
A lot of
difference.
difference.
He's
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
a considerable
It's a much
investment.
different situation.
Right, right.
Much different situation.
So I'm in favor of a production facility again, if we can make sure that everything works, and I'm in favor of a 30-year lease if they want it. I do agree with Gary that we should specify in some significant detail who's responsible for oversight of the maintenance plan. I'm not sure it should be this board, although that might be what we end up with. But that's something that we'll have to think about very carefully. And
Accountability of it.
I'm really interested in crafting this lease so that it protects the orchard. I'm not as interested in trying to make sure that the town gets something out of it apart from good stewardship of the land. And so if it's a 30-year lease because they're taking care of it and they're using it for what it should do, then I'm all in favor of that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
So Ryan he went and visited the orchard. He took some,
So my first tour of the orchard was
Yes.
today. So, so this is the.
Beautiful day.
I think
Yeah.
that the one takeaway from this, in terms of when we think about the facilities and how we treat the facilities, is that we have 4 basic facilities. We've got the upper barn, the house, the lower barn, and the cottage, all of which are in poor shape. So whatever costs that we as a community would incur, especially at prevailing wage, to be able to get them to a livable standard would be very challenging and very costly for us. So I think that's sort of the one lesson or takeaway I've had from my visit down to the site. I wanted to highlight this because there's 2 holes in these windows. Cindy had already pointed this out to us, so that's one of our projects, I think, Cindy, that we have to block up before the winter. and track
Right,
that.
to weatherproof, yep.
This is the back of the site. I have to tip my cap to Tim from Parks and Rec. The team did a great job of getting the site to a reasonable state, which, and as you can see, this is just what remains of that distill takeoff site. This is the lower cooling room. This is some of the chemicals and pesticides that we are planning to take out. That's scheduled for next Monday, the 14th, when Clean Harbors is going to be coming in. Another picture of the lower cooling room. So this is the upper barn, second floor. You can see the couch at the end. So it's a really unique things in this place. This is the upper barn, the pesticide room, which most of the efforts with Clean Harbors, that they're going to have to make most of their effort in. There's chemicals and pesticides throughout all these buildings that, again, will be addressed next Monday when Clean Harbors comes to visit. This is the upstairs attic. This is one area which the team did not spend a lot of time cleaning up, as you can clearly tell. Tires, boxes, this basically was a space that when no one knew what to do with anything on the farm, that's where it ended up going. Again, another picture of that. Now this building, what Cindy had said earlier, what they would be looking to do would maybe to strip out the entire inner core of the building and basically use this as a tap room. So this would be, they basically would open all the way up to the attic of the barn. Get to the house. This is from the lower end, and this is the back side. One thing I'd point out there is we're starting to see some of the rot of the side and the clapboards. So clearly, this is continuing to deteriorate. Dining room, and this is representative of what some of the bedrooms look like.
Oh, they did a great job inside, what that used to look like.
Yeah. So this is representative of, this is probably what the best bathroom in the house looks like. So obviously it's a little dated. There's water damage on most of the ceilings throughout the building. So that's something else to keep in mind. Basically, to get this to code would mean you'd probably have to gut the entire building. So we have to keep that in mind. This is one of the better rooms that were in better condition. I believe the prior tenant used this as his office. This is on the side of the building looking out over, I think is it Field 6?
That's like the walkout basement on the back?
Yeah, Field
yeah.
9.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
beautiful field.
So,
This looked over the donkey pen.
right, the donkey pen. So the
West
donkey was in the room underneath that. So, yes. All right. So this is one of what I believe to be 4 kitchens on the site. There's actually multiple kitchens. What the landlord did, and I don't know if this was with permission of the town or not, but basically had split up much of the space to allow for multiple apartments in the site. So certainly not up to code. I'm almost certain if we went back and asked for building records that we wouldn't see any evidence of this. So that's something to keep in mind with this as we think about its future use and when we think about renovation. This is the lower barn. Cindy had already pointed out we have a hole here, so we're going to try to fix that again before the winter comes. This is the back of the lower barn. It comes out to the field. This is the interior of the barn. Again, another interior shot. And these are some more of the pesticides and paint that we plan to have Clean Harbors remove. This is the back side of the lower barn inside as well. So as you can tell, these are old buildings in poor condition, simple as that. This is the cottage. Tim does not come with a lease, just so anybody's curious about that.
Did you catch him coming out?
He's like,
So the thing to keep in mind about this is as you look inside, there's really no walls per se. It is I think I would probably describe it as a glorified lean-to,
I mean, it's
basically.
obviously an old garage, right?
Something of that ilk. I mean, you can see, Cindy, you're asking if there's running water. Well, there's a sink.
Yeah.
But where that water's coming out from and where it's going to after that, I don't know. But, you can, again, you have a sense of, the bedroom's kind of tucked over to the left, and there's your kitchen. It really, in terms of a structure that we maybe want to maintain, I don't know. It's not a high-value part, so.
Initially, we were thinking of making this the town administrator's quarters.
That's right.
Punishment.
Punishment, that's right.
So-
Being bad, that's
Yeah, so
right.
that's pretty much it, but I just wanted to give that, I mean, I hadn't been there, but, when you look at it sort of neutrally and trying to think about, all right, what do we do with this? What sort of needs do we have? Do we need a house with 4 kitchens and 3 bathrooms? I mean, it's the code compliance issues alone were really significant looking at it. The barn, upper barn, as you saw, there's a lot of detritus there. We still need it, but the team did a great job of cleaning it up. From what Tim tells me, it's tremendously improved from where it was. But, as the board has to consider this, I think it's, where you're going with this and thinking about trying to make this the responsibility of the tenant, I think makes a lot of sense for you.
So do you have what you need from us?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are we going to, do we need a motion on, the main thing was the production, you needed to talk about the production.
Yeah, I just needed to get an idea. We're still need
Consensus.
to
That's fine,
continue
yeah.
to help
You've already-
the direction of the lease negotiations. So we'll have a more robust discussion about it once we bring back the draft lease.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
think we've got consensus for discussion purposes for Cindy and for town
Yeah.
council. and
Sounds like.
It's exciting.
the Working group.
Yeah.
All right. 7B, town representative to the MAPC, I think is the next one.
Yes, 7B, Mr. Chair. So this, we received notification from the MAPC that the seat currently held by our 2 town administrators ago, Keith Bergman, is up and is vacant now. Certainly, I'd be more than happy to take that position, representing the town on MAPC. So it's a pleasure.
I don't know how to ask this, but to ask, did Keith represent us? Because that was our last vote, was to have Keith continue to represent us, but I don't ever remember him coming back and updating us.
He did, and even after he was no longer here, we appointed him to that
Right, but
position.
I just don't recall ever getting an update back from him.
Yeah. Did you get special insight into what's going on by being on this? What's your advantage of being on this? Or our advantage, I should say, the town.
You get to help plan the vision of MAPC with their vision for, their master plan that they do, transportation issues, housing issues. You get to really be in that.
So what is it, Gary? It's for all different communities to come together and kind of share what's going on in their community and to come up with collaborative ideas
Planning.
with what Anthony just spoke to. Planning ideas, transportation and different things like
Regional
that.
type things.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And it's just to be in the know, so it's a great group to belong to and have Littleton represented. I think it's important.
Are all towns represented?
In this area.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
sir.
okay.
Any other comments?
And this is where the, what's the name of the bus between Westford and
The Lowell thing?
The mark?
Crosstown Connect?
Crosstown?
Crosstown,
Yeah,
okay.
Oh, yeah.
this is where the impetus of that came from.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
All right. Bill, guess if there are no more comments, we'll do a motion.
Anthony? Move the select board vote in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, Section 24, to appoint Town Administrator Anthony Ansaldi as the town's representative to the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, MAPC. Said appointment is for a 3-year term from this date.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Cindy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations, Anthony.
Oh, thank you.
One more feather in your cap. All right, 7C, town hall hours for the Friday after Thanksgiving.
So this, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Do you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll go
So
ahead.
this is kind of something
Thank you.
I bring up every year since I've been on the board, is I just have a thing about people having to work the day after Thanksgiving. So we've kind of gone through this over the past years, how to make this work, just to offer the day after Thanksgiving off to town employees. So I'm glad Anthony brought this up for the this board's discussion, because it's something that we try to visit every year just to see how the board feels about closing town hall the day after
I'm in
Thanksgiving.
favor of giving the employees the day after Thanksgiving off.
I was going to say make it a 10-hour day, but that's fine. No, no. This is a great idea. I think it would be interesting in the future to see utilizing that day for something for our town, whether it be fall days or something like that, just to make use of that day, whether it's a celebration of our town employees.
Yeah.
You think something. I'm just thinking down the line. Some
Where
harvest.
they're getting paid for it, but it's a recognition type of.
Yeah, like a harvest day or employee appreciation, town fest.
Storm along day.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, anyway, just thinking in the
Open house
future.
at
Free
the
cider for
at
all.
the
But I'm
orchard.
We
fully,
have something at that tap room before we go, huh?
I'm fully on board with this.
Mark,
So I have a couple, just minor, I mean, if we're gonna do this every year, why don't we just put it into the personnel bylaw that the day after Thanksgiving is a holiday? And why are we only doing it for town hall? What about DPW and the cemetery and all the other things in town?
Well, I think if you make it a day off on the calendar, and then you could run into, what if there's a snowstorm, now you're paying time and a half, or double time. I don't know what the ramifications of just saying it's one of our, now we have 12.
Well,
So the reason why it says town hall, because that's what the select board have control over,
There you
town
go.
hall. They don't have control over the library, although the library tends to fall. That falls under the library trustees, and they always take our cue from us, but it's not in your purview, per se.
What about
Okay.
DPW?
DPW, we've worked with the police, fire. We didn't have a side letter, but we worked out. DPW would follow suit.
But because they're union, we don't have
Yes.
control over them.
Yes.
Okay.
We have a contract.
And obviously cemetery is cemetery commission, and the light and water
Right.
employees are their commission.
We would work with
Got
the
it.
police department, the fire department, DPW, and
Okay.
come up with some kind of equitable arrangement.
Does that make sense? Anyone else commenting?
Move that the select board vote to close town hall for the Friday after Thanksgiving, November 25th, 2022. Is that what you're looking for?
That was what I was looking for, yeah.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Gary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0. Nicely done. All right, minutes of October 24th. Is it my imagination, or are the minutes more bare bones than they used to be?
It's still Sue doing them,
Well,
so
okay, I mean, they're perfectly accurate.
Sue's just getting really good at it.
Yeah, it must be.
Yeah.
Any comments or corrections on those? All right,
Move the select board vote to approve the meeting minutes of October 24th, 2022.
Second.
motion made by Chuck, seconded by Cindy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to adjourn?
second,
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That was Chuck, and who seconded that?
You
Cindy.
can give it to Mark.
Okay, I'll give it to Mark, just for the minutes. Thank you all. Good night.
Thanks, folks.
Vote.
Yeah, don't forget to vote.